Good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, Still pretty off this morning. Um, it's like an overall feeling of just like exhaustion, and it's tricky because I'm doing a lot of. There's one particular area in my hips and my muscles down there that I'm putting a lot of work into, and I think that is taking its toll. Because it's not at a level of stretching, it's kind of at a level of like trauma. But I'm trusting that that's that's like a positive thing. It's just over the line, so it's to repair a decade's worth of damage. And so I think that adds to it. And then mentally stressed, although and then the virus, like, kind of, I think basically stress is like leaving the door open, and then when you leave the door open, it's where, if you have existing, so this virus is just a virus I just have forever. I've had a couple of times where I was like, I beat it, yes. And actually, funnily enough, the actual cold sore, this is the least aggressively it has flared up, fingers crossed, at this stage. And the physical symptoms are worse. Like the sick feeling is worse, but the actual sore itself barely even became noticeable. So I don't know what to take from that. It's just observation, and now it's documented. But one thing, I woke up this morning. The reason I do these, I get up, I actually wake up instantly and generally have an exact concept. Like, my body and my brain has settled into this pattern, like, quite nicely. Like, it seems like I've tapped into some type of mechanism that is a dance between this is me consciously, rationally explaining the things that are subconsciously forming in my sleep. And I'm just getting very good at it over time. It started, it was like very chaotically, and also very, like, this is what got me into trouble, and this is what the subject of this is going to be about. It wasn't like that dance, learning those steps of that dance of, like, hey, you're going to go to sleep, you're going to be in dreams and all types of things, and then you're going to be waking up and having clear insights into the state that you're in and the state of the world that you're deeply observing and deeply stimulating by doing this. Like, I'm now at the level where I'm getting comfortable with that. But in the beginning, it's like, that's like getting, it was not immediately obvious what was going on to myself or anyone around me, because we don't and I want to just be really clear about this, because this now that I've finessed out over like a 2-year period, and actually it's more like a 15-year period with the last 2 years being quite extreme. But now that I've got to a place where I'm you know what I mean? I'm appearing. It's like I've had to find out a way how to condense whatever's going on into a way that fits in with a societally accepted thing. Because that's what's demanded by society in general. And I think this is one of the most important things that, and this is why, like this morning, whereas yesterday I was a bit off, didn't really have a subject. This morning I've woken up and I'm like, I get it. I know exactly what's going on, what I want to explain, how to explain it. Like, and even like further onto that, it's like what I'm doing in relation to the world, like what my place is, how to justify and gain authority based on these behaviours, historical precedents to this type of thing, technological tools I'm going to use in order to do, like, all of that was condensed in my head as I'm waking up. Quite often what it feels like is, if you've ever had a really deep conversation with someone, say someone you really know, almost all of you will have done this. You will have, say it could be a parent or a sibling or a really good old friend, and you have, you know, there's lots of chit chat all the time. There's this back and forth, and then if you've ever gone in and had a really deep connection with someone, and that feeling you get when you walk away from that, and you kind of go, "Wow, I didn't know that about them." And it's a good feeling. It's like it's like there's been, especially if this is someone that's close to you, you kind of like, you've sketched out, like you've coloured in this whole section of the world, because they're in your world very intensely if they're that type of person, close friend or a relative. But some of them have always been in the dark, and then so you've coloured that in. That's what it's like. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm waking up having had literally a conversation with the world. And with a lot of times, this conversation with the world, it's colouring in sections of the world where I'm like, okay. And then it's colouring in sections of myself and my feeling within the world, my interaction with the world. And what, a lot of times, the most valuable insights in my history that I've ever gotten were revelations about myself, because that's the point you can change. And it's usually about changing a mindset of yourself. This happened, the first really crazy experience I had of this was when I got hammered financially after the financial crisis, and I ended up, it was a big drama. I had to go and get this random work up north, sent all my tools there. They had me up there promising it was going to be months of work, and then I was there for a week, and then they didn't even fire me. They're just like, yeah, we're just going to send you home, and then you'll come back. And then I kept phoning them up. I'm like, when am I coming back? They're like, oh yeah, nah, like, and then all my tools were there. I couldn't work. It was a real nightmare. It was Andrew Forrest, by the way. That was his house. So yeah, he's a bit of a prick as far as I'm concerned. So any donation to this Andrew Forrest would be, would be welcomed, maybe as a little, I'm sorry for fucking you up that long ago. But anyway, and this is ironic that I'm going to get to this next point. The thing that got me out of that period wasn't blaming Andrew Forrest, although I'm going to bring it up now. Never let a opportunity pass you by to shake the tin. But the thing that released me from that prison of victimhood, and I was being victimized, like I was a victim, quite heavily, and I am now in the same way. But what I didn't know then, which I came to, was I did take responsibility and I blamed it on myself. I blame myself for not educating myself financially, for not educating myself about the real world, for just taking the world as it was presented. And that was the point that allowed me to move on. And so during this period, having that precedent, I've been searching for that. And so I've known somewhere, but it was almost like the stuff going on was so bad and it was so wrong that it was victimizing myself and so many others. And we were going down this wrong path, that this time was a lot harder. So I have been stuck in this mode of it's like if you've ever heard me speak in the terms of victimization, I'm speaking, the way I'm doing it is like I'm usually thinking of someone having the same things on them that doesn't have the ability to do what I'm doing. So I feel like I'm stabbing in the dark and like forging into down a dark path on behalf of the countless people behind me that may not do that. And so it's a very different form of victimization. And I try not to, some of the things I use is like, I haven't gone and got financial aid during this period. I haven't wanted, I've had a few people help me out and it's been very much appreciated. But the balance between that is I haven't wanted to get used to that or get stuck in that or have that used against me. So anytime, that's the thing that I get most upset by is if somebody helps you and then they use that against you. It's like, I didn't want the help to begin with. If you were going to then use that to lower my standing, that's what I'm extremely sensitive to. But what I got to this morning on waking was it landed where I could change myself to bring myself out of this this victimhood spiral. And the point was it was very different. So the previous one was I hadn't educated myself in these things in the way the actual world was. And so it was my fault. This one was I hadn't congratulated myself for educating myself. And then very quickly from that, which you could go, that's a bit fucking self-serving. What do you mean you didn't congratulate yourself? You know what I mean? Like you lost me there because now you just sound like a fucking narcissist. It's like, expanded from that is I didn't congratulate myself for doing the work. I also didn't do the work in realizing that this world that we live in. So obviously the thing I identified when I think I was like 25, which is when that financial situation happened, was, okay, I didn't educate myself on the real world. I took what they said. This is the expanded thing. Within that is like, we live in a concealed world, really, on every level. Like, so many institutions that we just consider basic human, evolution, things like that, the reality of those are concealed. So I discovered that in finance. Finance is the best one because it's like there is no financial education within schools. And part of that, like, I've thought of that as bad, or this is this negative thing. I actually just think I'm like, well, no, there couldn't really be. One, it changes all the time. And two, if you actually taught people financial reality at school, which, well, we wouldn't have a financial reality because it exists in the obscured. All of these systems, and this is what started hitting really hard. I was like, all these systems are that because they were built iteratively by people with self-interest. Now, this is where you get like Marxists and communists blame the whole thing and they go, oh, well, that's capitalism, that's why we need to be communists. But the communists ends up with a worse condition because there is no pressure to improve. And knowing that there will be people that benefit, it's like that. Well, that's even worse. So at least capitalism has a chance of breaking out of this obscurity. But then I landed at kind of the next truth that was revealed to me this morning is our world is not prepared for this spotlight that's coming. Our sense of well-being, I don't think, can handle the intense spotlight that is coming to almost every basic institution that we live within. And the revelation that these systems are like completely corrupt is destabilizing, even if one of these, but the fact that like multiple like key systems within civilized society are completely corrupt and fictitious and self-serving and destructive. And they have been allowed to exist like that for two reasons. One, we just like we have a dance between the limiting factors to be able to educate yourself were, one, you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. That percentage, I think, is something like 80% of society. They just don't want to do it. They don't have any interest in doing it, just by desire. They're quite happy to just do what they're doing and to get along and do whatever. And then the 20% remaining that have an interest, it's maybe like 80% of them cannot afford the time nor the money, definitely the money in previous times, because it wasn't, I mean, the information's always been there. There's always these outlier people that do go and, and this is what I discovered myself as, like me writing to the library 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I had no money to go and get books. It's like, oh, I am one of those people. Society doesn't like those people, especially in the beginning of those people's journey. It's like a marathon. And not only does society not like them, society has no way, and in our current thing, to accept these people, bar doing extraordinary amounts, like head and shoulders amounts of work and focused work, like attention and presentation above what the remaining percentage that have entered that with financial means or something like that. So that was a big way to say, basically, we don't have social pathways for self-educated people. And this is where we are. But because of technology, we are on, like, I am the tip of a fucking 20-year long spear that is just sitting out there, waiting to tear every institution that we have to pieces, legitimately, because that is that is what they actually are. Now, so that percentage is too big. I think I heard a thing yesterday. It's like you need 3.6% of a population to stop a fascist dictatorship. It's like the tipping point. It's you need small little movements to tip an entire thing. This population is way larger than that. And it's not just tipping a fascist thing, it's tipping a complete structure of corruption. And so it's going to happen. It's just we don't have, like, because we live, like, part of the way that scam has been enabled is the expert model. And so we've had, like, the human systems, they tend to, like, self-organize as, like, a factory. And this is like a miracle of, like, finance and money and capitalism. So it's not so much that, like, someone's infiltrated universities to indoctrinate people. It's purely just, like, these companies, and even it's the same with the companies. It's not like they went, oh, we want to kill everyone with this, whatever. It's like, we want to make money. And this is, again, please take this as not a critique on capitalism. This is capitalism's moment of truth. Funnily enough, probably why there is so much socialist pressure is because this is a vulnerability. They jump on the vulnerability and go, well, see, we need communism. And it's like, I'm going, no, communism is the easy answer, which ends to hell. Whereas what we really need is we need to build in systems of feedback, which is what capitalism is, like, needs. The same as politics needs it. That's why it's all been kept out. This is their final protection of a huge segment of society that is criminally negligent in allowing this thing. 1, allowing. 2, participating. 3, financing. And 4, like, just, and I don't know, like, whatever. But the unfortunate truth, this is like the Al Gore moment. It's like Al Gore is like, well, the inconvenient truth is we're all going to be, barbecuing eggs on our fucking driveway, which in Australia we've always been able to do. But the real inconvenient truth is that the majority of our institutions that we believe are there to help us are just dirty, corrupt, fucking criminal organizations with pretty logos. And that is a very hard pill to swallow. It's, so within that relieved me. I went, oh, society just doesn't know how to deal with me yet. Society doesn't know where to put me. And so this is where, like, and there aren't a lot of like priests, especially within, like, common knowledge. It's not like everyone's like, oh, Shannon's on our team. Shannon's, like, doing this work voluntarily for us to save our future lives and our children's lives. What a great guy. Like, this is where I'm sitting there going, like, why can't they see? Thinking it's me, thinking it's them, dancing around that thing. Like, that's very that's a very big stress to carry. And there's a lot of like, I probably have had periods of like self-pity and of like victimhood and like alienation, all those things. But something about this morning, I went, oh, well, they just don't know. If you've never seen something before, how would you know what it is? And when something you haven't seen before props up, it is just natural human nature to fucking distrust it and a lot of times attack it, which I've had both of. And you can see how that's the path. That's why these are the entry point for corruption, these institutions, because they're there. We already trust them. So the fact that I've been attacked and alienated and ostracized is because, hey, this Shannon Wise character, this you're meant to just be a glazier, mate. You're meant to just fix windows and put mirrors up and shut your fucking mouth. We don't have people like you doing this type of thing. We have experts doing this type of thing. Sit the fuck down and shut up. Like, that's not even an overstatement. That's literally what it was. That's what we were told. And it's like, unfortunately, the reason for that is, these trusted institutions have obviously been the entry point. The fact that I get attacked as being the anomalous whatever, that mechanism that will make you easily attack me and trust your doctor, that's why they use the doctors. That's why that structure is the entry point, because you already trust it. This is why, like, a lot of times I spent 12 years building a business and building trust around that business, which was thrown into the fucking bin because of this effect, but I won't get into that. I know about business. When you go and if you go and look, one of the most important things was my Google reviews and making sure that everyone was absolutely happy. A lot of times I would lose all the money from jobs just to make sure that person was happy. This was the way I did business. And this is because you're building up social capital, which is so nowadays, say, I don't know where my business is going to be after this. Who knows? That's an unknown. So I just don't really like looking at it. But if I was to nowadays, whereas when I was younger, I was like, why would you buy a business? I can just build it. It's way easier. Nowadays, as an older man, I understand a lot more. So if I could buy this business of me, I'd be like, whoa, yeah. Fuck doing 10 years of grind to build up a thing. As long as that business has some proven social capital and some proven authority and existence for a long period, it's like that's worth a lot of money. And this is what the medical system is. And this is where the capitalist system has turned university students into widgets. I mean, a widget is a term that's used in business to describe any product. So it's like that university pumps out widgets so that let's say the pharmaceutical or the medical company can just buy those widgets and stick them in their money-making machine. And their money-making machine has wires and cords and people and letters and everything going into every section of our lives, every section, because it was built properly, with the mechanism being just purely profit. And that's a hard reality to set on. So it's like we have castles in plain sight. They're right there. They are castles. They act exactly like castles. They're structures of fortification, but the fortification exists in our minds. It's like the large enough network. Yesterday I was speaking. I don't even think I've shared that. So I was speaking about I think it's the Metcalfe effect, Metcalfe's law. I think that's what it was. That's what these pharmaceutical companies are doing. That's what these medical companies are doing. That's what our education system is doing. And so that was what was discovered by this revelation. Was I went, well, right, I know my purpose. My purpose is to engineer my own authority, and I'm already 3 years into that. And that was kind of because a lot of the stuff I've been doing, I've been like fighting and like for my life, basically defending this thing without a clear, like all I was like, just stop, and we need to fucking whatever. It's like, that was the mode. And something about this morning, I went, here is your next period. You need to now gain authority for what you've been doing. And the way you're going to do that is by mapping out the fact that you didn't have authority and why that is, and how we're going to how societally we're going to deal with a population that is ever increasingly has the ability to educate itself. Now, that's all kind of positive, right? As long as it can be done. I think there's a large enough percentage, there's a large enough call. So this is going to happen. And I found the pathway. It's like, right, so we need to work out how to certify ourselves in their system so that we can gain authority to be able to critique and change these castles. So that was very clear to me. I was like, okay, that's kind of wonderful. I know how to do that. So you have to see the goal to be able to do it. I know how to gain authority. I know how to and thankfully some of the things that had prevented me from doing that, like I'm not a very good writer. I do have some kind of like attention issues and things like that. And so I've found the highest level I can do. When I do these, this is effortless, and I can put out really, really concise, like concentrated information in the way that works for me. Like this is how I would do this. For me to write this down, I end up stumbling and it feels like what it's always felt like to me. I think now that I understand it is like, it's like, why go that level of abstraction? It's because we needed to, because you needed to write a book. You had to write a book if you wanted someone on the other side of the world, or even, a lot of times someone on the other side of your country, to hear what you were saying. You had to write a book. Now we don't. And so, yeah. But one of the tools of technology up my sleeve is that, well, I know I can go and get some premium AI product, some language model product, and transpose everything I've said and condense it and write what I was saying as a writer would. And that's, if you think of like a lot of people, that's what, it's like having a staff of like 1,000 writers and things like that. I know that's there. That's there for like $20 a month. It's like, and this is what, like, just know that. Fucking know that. I've already tested it. I did a few versions of this with AI and learnt the dance of AI and was spitting out stuff that I was pretty happy with and was sending that to politicians. And that was like the warning shot across the bow. It's like, you're going to have to fucking pay attention to this. And they ignored it. And so, but then part of them ignoring it is part of my strategy. It's like, yeah, they ignored it. They kept ignoring it. This is crazy. So that's up my sleeve. That may be the avenue I go to get authority. Is like, right, people respect crazy people talking into their phone. We don't have great precedent for that. If you think of like Alex Jones or someone like that, and I'm not at that level of conspiracy. I'm trying to actually find the structural things that we live in an explainable way, and actually a lot of times I end up just feeling that these are almost like industrial accidents. They're not intended. Like, people didn't intend for asbestos to fucking kill everyone. We just didn't know, and then we industrialized it. Like, I do feel like we just have a million asbestos situations going. And on top of that, we have, like, financial and information systems, like, defending their position of having asbestos out in the world. Because that would be terrifying. The point, it's one thing being, like, cautious and preemptive. Oh, we better not do this asbestos because it's that. And then some guy's like, get the asbestos out there. I can do it. I can get it all around the world in no time at all. There's always going to be that guy. So these aren't evil things. It's part of our, like, because we now have these systems to distribute, we're going to, unfortunately, it's inevitable that we were going to distribute problems. And problems have a larger... It's like no one's sitting there going, isn't it great that we have distributed toilet brushes all across the world? Like, everyone has a convenient $5 toilet brush that they can brush the poo off their toilet with. Oh, what a wonderful world we live in. No one is doing that. As soon as there's something there, we expect it. It's like we just now expect that we can go to any fucking supermarket and buy a $5 toilet brush. Something that would have been, in the past, made with the same intensity that anything else was made. But now it's just mass produced, so we're sort of sorted. We're like, well, toilet brushes, wicked. Now, so the positive is vanished very quickly, because no one remembers a time when we didn't have just $5 toilet brushes. But the thing of a problem is, well, a problem can grow exponentially. A lot of problems do. And a problem is, like, emotionally, this is what, it's like, you want to look into social media and look at the fact that, they use negative news articles and negative imagery to keep us on there. Like, human nature is unfortunate. So these problems are being defended against in everything, because it's almost like dominoes. It's like, once a few of these start going, we're going to recognize the pattern that we've distributed problems. Still nothing. It's like, even that concept in myself has just been come up with this morning. But if that becomes like common knowledge, it's like, oh, we had an industrial revolution, and then we had an industrial revolution of problems where we distributed problems all across the world. That is a virus. If you think what of, like, this, the fear of these viruses was that they are a problem, to individuals, and they spread across the world. So it's like, well, we're not a virus. We created a virus in which our impetuousness to develop and distribute inevitably distributed problems. The biggest, like plastic being a huge one, asbestos being a huge one. All right, I've got 20 minutes. I've got two things I still want to speak on. So I'm going to continue on. I'll keep the one in my back pocket. Sorry about that. So, a conversation weirdly I've had with my mother's partner keeps coming up, because, like, we will land somewhere on plastic, and I have the belief somewhere within me. I'm like, well, when I look at biology and ecology and physics and these things, I have a belief that evolution. Anyway, as soon as there is enough plastic distributed in areas like that pressure of that resource, because plastic, if you've ever, like, burnt a little bit of plastic, there's a fuckload of energy in that plastic, and we are just chemical reactions. So it makes sense to me that somewhere, and this could appear in the actual environment, this could appear in the ocean. The ocean would be the most likely place, because it's it's where everything is born, or most things. It's like and there's a lot of it, there's concentration, and it can, anyway. it's in fluid. Something is going to emerge that consumes plastic and breaks it down. So this more than likely this is going to be a fungus or a bacteria or maybe a microbe or maybe, do you know what I mean? The strangest thing of all would be, or potentially within our bodies and within the bodies of all animals. So, which could be a bacteria or something like that. That's how our systems work. So we have bacteria that break down organic matter. It's like we will probably have to incorporate some new bacteria that breaks down plastic. And so we all will become plastic digesters, and so will every animal on Earth as soon as this emerges. But the funniest thing to think is if it was a microbe like, say, a termite, although termites generally only break things down smaller, it's that we have like levels of scale to where things are broken down. But the funniest thing, we've had this conversation when we're like, oh, so I'll get land there. Something will eventually end up eating plastic. And this is where it's the dance between other people. I've been like, what a positive thing. We're going to get rid of all this plastic. And he immediately went, well, that makes plastic retarded then. That's the whole reason for plastic, is that nothing eats it. If things started eating it, think of the actual problems that would create. And we went off on this tangent. Some of the biggest ones I thought of was like insulation on wiring. If something starts eating that, we're fucked. If something starts eating, plastic boats, plastic bottles, like the plastic liners of infrastructure. The reason we have plastic is because nothing eats it. So that was like, that got me, and I instantly took a step back and went, whoa, holy shit, I don't notice anything. I'm praying for this thing to break down plastic, and I'm like, well, that could bring about the end of the world. So you can think of plastic as like the reason plastic has been put around the world is because of this. So we'd better fucking hope that it's inert, in a way. And I think it's where all the fear of plastic is kind of the same. It's like, maybe, hopefully it's not causing anything, because it's so important to our lives. And that's where we would only be revealed with that after it started getting holes. And imagine he said, imagine your dashboard of your car starts getting eaten out like rust. All cars used to rust. My car that I had as a kid, my mum's car, like the floor was gone. That was the thing. It's like all cars were fucked. They just fell to bits. They all had rust at the bottom of the doors. You don't really see it as much these days because cars are turned over quickly, and they did get some pretty good, probably plastic, to treat them with. But yeah, we had, like, if I gave it a big thing on the floor of my car as a child, a Falcon station wagon, the fucking floor would have fallen out. Just imagine all the plastic covered brake lines and hydraulic things on a car. It's like, fucking hell. So the thing I'm going to end on, I've got 15 minutes. This is this is like the dark side of what I was revealed with this morning. This is hard to talk about. This is probably I get a bit of a warning signal when I go to do it. Like, there's probably controversial. I'm probably going to go into some things that are politically incorrect or something that's not very pleasant. But what it is so if we've acquired if you've gone through this and agreed with some of it, you've acquired perhaps the new knowledge, or you've confirmed the knowledge that you may have had, that our institutions are corrupt, predatory institutions that in a lot of cases now are actually doing the opposite of what they were built for. Not out of, I don't think out of some grand conspiracy. I think out of a few key points in society that have adapted to their conditions. So when the pressure is just profit, then this is what happens when the pressure on those other systems. So when the medical system puts pressure on the education system to pump out these people, it isn't attacking people that will be critical. It's just not, it's not filtering them up. So they're lost. They're lost by that system because there's no place for them to go, and that's me. And that's where I discovered, like, well, I need to engineer a way to get authority so we can attack these systems that are attacking us. And because those systems are just self-serving, they're not actually going to be that good at that. And it's actually going to be quite easy. So that was the point. It's like we need certification to gain authority for self-educated people. Now, the dark side is, as I said, there is approximately 80% of people who have no interest in the world about educating themselves, or about making change, or about even observing the reality. This is this point where this gets really strange, because of that distribution. And you can see this is like that percentage of people, it's like that's why we had wars. That's why we had, invasions and violence. It's like when you have 80% of people that will go along with whatever, and this was the distribution on the virus. Like, they did a stock take of their infantry, basically. They're like, what is our infantry of people that will just go along? And that was 80%. That fucking terrifies me, because even addressing them, you get into, like, if you're following along with this, I would recommend you just think about that for 10 minutes. And then you start getting to realize that there's been a few things where psychopaths are being pushed to the top of these institutions. And it's kind of like, when you realize there is a distribution of 80% of people that are just going to go along, it's like the only thing that gets those people doing anything is a fucking psychopath. Because by its very nature, what you can also get from that is like those 80%, if not kept moving, will just degrade into like throwing shit at each other and raping and fucking stealing, and it's like, so that was the most terrifying bit. Something hit me. So a responsibility hit me, and I went, oh, fuck. They need, we're not going to have this revolution of self-educated people in the way that I thought about it. We're only ever going to have that same distribution. And so, and this was the funniest bit where I got to, I was like, so we need to trick that 80% of people into doing what's needed so that the world doesn't fucking stop. And then I got, it's because at the moment, that 80% of people, they're not being tricked into what the world needs. They're just being milked. with every fucking whim and desire and shit that they have, and every lower fucking instinct to compete with each other or to, you know what I mean, to show off or to posture. That's the world economy. The world economy is it's like that's what stabilizes that 80%. If they, it's like if they're preoccupied with purchasing and posturing and competing with each other and sex and drugs and alcohol and all these things, then we can continue on. That's the fucking terrifying bit. It's like you can't change it. It was almost where I started like understanding. I was like, why is the world going into this shit thing? It's like, because there's a bunch of fucking shit people. So what terrifies me within this is I think we're going into a world that will be also this is what I was going to say. It's like, I don't know whether I'm like, I don't, all right, sea level. One of the things like that's very hard to do with sea level is everything changes around it. I'm kind of a bit lost, but it's like you need, like, if you were, say you were on the ocean and there was no land, how do you know whether the sea level is rising or falling? You don't have a reference, you know, unless you have an anchor on hard rock. Even that sand can change. Everything can change. So I can't see whether all society is rising or whether society is rising, that 20% is rising and the 80% is lowering into basic thing. The vision I saw, basically, to get to the point, is a societal structure that is far different, like that where like we've kind of gotten here by having civilized society for the most part. I almost saw a future where uncivilized behavior by the masses, by that 80%, becomes just so embedded in society that and then there's another portion that just kind of steers it. And I don't think there's any, like, almost what I saw was, is there is the battle too large to try and bring everyone around? It's like, if this is evolutionary, then it would be just to optimize down my own thing and for my own family, my own. It's like, because I don't think knowing, basically what I'm saying is technology is going to enable everyone to have everything they want, and I think most people are going to fucking drown in that. Even myself, like I can see the thing. If I didn't have this other thing that is very that's been around for a long time, like I do want to do certain things, but I don't see it as like it's going to happen. Like we're going to change. We are changing as a structure on this earth. I think this is what is being invoked at the highest levels, is evolution. And this may have been something that's existed all the time. So whereas I've had this idea of a swarm and the swarm will stop, I didn't ever really put much thought into what the world looks like after the swarm stops, once full colonization takes on. And I think, although maybe evolutionarily stable and like all these things, it's like the concept of being conscious during that transition, I think that's what's pushed me to be solitary, because it's kind of shocking. And there's a lot of things I'm not saying. There's a lot of what I've perhaps peered into the future of the world and seen that to unadapted, acclimatized minds would appear just, it's like let's just say the practice of letting go and continue on is going to be very important if you are conscious during this period. If you're unconscious, I'm almost envious. I think that's where, yeah. As you can probably see, I've hit something there that's intense, and I'm not comfortable yet in really talking about that. But you can maybe glean from my reaction. The world is going to be very, very different, and most people won't even notice. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening. Even at the end of that, I end up getting to a point where it's like, oh, if that happens quickly, I might not even, it's like, I think of this thing of like, oh, I'm going to need to get authority, I'm going to have to write a book. It's like, I think it's going to be way different than that. Even from ending my own speech, it's like, I think we're going to, like, I think I will be some type of like wanderer, because I'm conscious and seeing this, and I think that is the anomaly during this point. If you were just in it, you're just in it. We're going to see, there's going to be a breaking point where we see there's going to be a generation of kids where we go, these are something different very soon. And I think there's actually going to be a split. We're going to see the strangely most subservient, like, different speed, like, and then we're going to see the smartest people on earth at the same time. I think that divide is going to get larger and more clear. And yeah, I think keeping humanity is the most important thing. Keeping just kindness and care, and not going to a lower instinct, is going to be needed to be kept very strongly during that period. Let me just say that. All right, thank you.